penultimate episode of Dexter Original Sin is here, and oh man, it was quite intense. We now know why Brian and Dexter were separated after Laura's passing and how involved Brian was in Dexter's life before they've met. Dexter finally made a move on Spencer. On the other hand, Harry was dealing with a lot of problems on his own. We could see some of his tragic flashbacks. It looks like Deborah gained a bit of motivation to work at Miami Metro, and it also appears that the episode left us with some unanswered questions. Hello everybody, my name is Adalon. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Today we're gonna dive into the 9th episode of Dexter Original Sin. There's officially one episode left and we can all agree that it's been a hell of a ride. One thing that I missed in this episode was any sort of development on Gio's story. He was not involved in this episode at all. Maybe he's involved in the last one, we will have to see. A quick reminder to all of you, there's still a giveaway going on for these two keyboards behind me, so if you haven't participated yet, you can participate by commenting under this video. Winners will be chosen next week. Good luck. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to this channel. It really means a lot to me. Now let's get to the episode. The episode starts with Brian in what it seems to be a nursery home. He's playing bingo with elders, and specifically this one lady with a mark on her right cheek. Her name is Barb, and further into the episode we'll learn who she is as we see her backstory. Then we see Harry and LaGuerta arriving at hospital. Angel explains Bobby's critical situation, and LaGuerta, regardless the circumstances, wants to have a word with Harry. She confronts him about the stolen file and asks him about Brian Moser. Well, Harry quickly comes up with an explanation and explains to her that this case is personal for him. He even goes into details about Estrada Cartel and his affair with Laura Moser. He tries to convince her that the case has nothing to do with the NHI killer. Harry knows that if LaGuerta will decide to take a look at files, she will not find anything about Dexter since he was permanently removed from records. The scene then cuts to Harry's flashback where Harry is explaining to Spencer that Laura and her kids got kidnapped. He admits to having an affair with her which compromised their case against Estrada and costed him his badge. Spencer is pissed, but he allows Harry to join search for Laura and her kids as a unit. There is a ton of containers at the dock and Harry knew that it will take a while to go through all of them. Back in the present at Miami Metro, everyone is still obsessing over Nikki's case. Dexter is amazed at the fact that Spencer had everyone fooled except him. He sees the evil behind his mask, which makes Spencer the perfect code-fitting candidate for Dexter's table. Later that day, Dexter decides to break into Spencer's apartment to look for clues. He finds a few photos of Aaron and Nikki together, along with some of the lunch boxes which Nikki and Jimmy ate while they were kidnapped. Dexter planned to abduct Spencer at his apartment, but he got interrupted in the process. It turns out that Harry had driven Aaron home from work and decided to stay around for a drink. Dexter had to come up with a different plan, and when he heard Spencer coming into a room where he was hiding in, instead of drugging Spencer, Dexter slipped out of his balcony window before he could be spotted. Dexter almost got caught here, but what is even more frustrating for him is that he didn't have any solid proof that would make Spencer fit the code. The next morning at Morgan's, Dexter asks Harry about the news on Bobby. He replies that the situation is critical and he thanks Dexter for getting Deb out of Bimini. Dexter then asks him about his hunt for the NHI killer. Because Harry knows who the NHI killer is, he comes up with a lie and says to him that he doesn't even think that the murders are connected. Dexter did not believe that, and we can hear Dexter's inner voice saying that this was the first time Harry had lied to his face. Deborah joins their conversation and reveals that she dumped Gio. Harry then kills the vibe by revealing that her godfather Bobby is in the hospital, which clearly upsets her. And just like the rest of Miami Metro, Deb also decides to donate blood for him. Again, we are back to Harry's flashbacks where searching for Laura and the kids have been going on for 3 entire days and everyone was on the verge of giving up. Luckily, the lady cop finds some something and Harry then recognizes Brian's voice, which led to them opening the container. And it was a disaster. Harry found Dexter and Brian, he pulls out Dexter and then Bobby pulls out Brian, which was a great recreation of the scene from the original series. However, Laura's body was not in one piece, and although this could serve as a great ice truck killer or Bay Harbor Butcher Easter egg, seeing her like that was pretty disturbing, especially for Brian and Dexter. On the bright side, if we can call it, we witnessed more details about the birth of Dexter's dark passenger. In the present timeline, Nicky finds out that his own father kidnapped him. He asks him why he is doing this to him, and out of surprise, Spencer lets Nicky see his face and tells him that he didn't do anything wrong and that this will all be over soon. Whatever Spencer's plan is nothing good for Nicky. At the station, everyone is donating blood for Bobby. Dexter decides to not wait with Deb in line and tells her he has work to do. His plan is to look for more evidence on Spencer, but he quickly gets interrupted by Tanya, who orders him to draw blood from donors. LaGuerta heads to records to find out more about the Laura Moser case, but as we know, she is only going to find what Harry told her because Dexter was removed from all the records. Camilla then calls Harry and tells him that LaGuerta took a peek at case files, but she seemed satisfied enough. Another thing is, Harry wanted her to pull Brian Moser's files from the years after Laura's death, but since he was a juvenile at the time, all of them were sealed. Camilla couldn't tell him anything other than the fact that Brian went to a psychiatric facility in Tampa. Then an interesting part of Harry's flashback happens, in which we can see Brian and Dexter at Morgan's house, where Doris and Harry are talking to a social worker, and this social worker is Barb. At that time we knew that after all those years, Brian visiting her doesn't mean anything good. Barb recommends to them that Dexter and Brian should not be separated, and even though Doris learned that the kids were Laura Moser's sons, she decided to take both of them in. In the present, we can see Deb wandering around the station after she donated blood. She meets LaGuerta, who doesn't seem to have time for her, and she also meets Tanya, who seems much more interested in talking to her than LaGuerta. Tanya tells her that she played basketball in high school just like Deb played volleyball, and that catching criminals was the best substitute she could find ever since. It looks like Tanya was one of the bigger influences on why Deb became a police officer in the original series. Meanwhile, Dexter is drawing blood from all the donors. When Spencer came in to donate blood, Dexter had a tense standoff with him. Spencer was able to keep on his mask, which made Dexter impressed with how good of a liar he was. When Dexter's blood drive days were over, Clark Sanders came into a room and asked Dexter for a favor. He told him that one of his partners were diagnosed with HIV and he is still waiting for his blood results to come back. Dexter then drew his own blood, put it in a bag marked as Sanders, and gave Clark a bandage to help him keep his secret. However, after he was done, Masuka insisted that Dexter also had to give blood for their own, so Dexter ended up giving blood twice. Here we are back at Harry's flashback, and this time it got a bit intense. As we know, Doris and Harry decided to take both brothers in, and one day while Deb was loudly crying, Brian decided to suffocate her with a pillow. Well, now we know that in original Dexter, it wasn't Brian's first attempt to kill Deb. Anyways, Doris managed to stop him at the right time, but later he showed his psychopathic tendencies by smashing his own hand through a window, slapping Harry and telling everyone that he hates them, then running away. That has led to Doris and Harry giving Brian back to social services because they couldn't handle his level of trauma. Back in the present, it's kinda late. Harry and LaGuerta are still at the station. LaGuerta decides to visit two of their suspects, and Harry is trying to figure out what all those people did to Brian. Harry then realizes by taking a closer look to the pictures that Brian was present at every crime scene which Dexter has worked at. We then see Brian still playing bingo with Barb, and when they are done, he invites her to Applebee's, but it turns out he has different plans. When they leave together, he tries to get Barb into his creepy truck. He opens the door, reveals himself to her, and knocks her out. It's over for her. On the other side, Deborah comes home to an empty house. She gets a call from FSU. They tell her that despite getting kicked off her volleyball team, the coach is still interested in meeting about a scholarship. At the same time, Dexter is preparing his kill room at the local arcade. He clearly struggles with the preparation since he had to give his blood twice that day. Spencer finds an envelope at his front door, which is in reality Dexter's blackmail attempt to lure him into the arcade. Spencer is clueless and blames Victor, the guy who planted Nikki's jersey, and he decides to meet him. While all of this is happening, Harry visits Bobby at the hospital, where he opens up to him even though Bobby seems to be unconscious. He tells him about Brian and the NHI cases and also how Brian is stalking Dexter. Harry is completely devastated and has no idea what to do. Then out of nowhere, Bobby wakes up from the coma and tells Harry to save Dexter. I'm not exactly sure what he meant by that, but we will see how all of this plays out. Then a short flashback of Harry's occurs, in which Barb takes Brian away from Morgan's due to his violent tendencies. It's really a sad scene, especially when young Dexter says, "Daddy, where's Barney going?" Well, in the present, Spencer arrives at the arcade where he and Dexter have a bit of a tussle. Dexter was still a little dizzy from all the blood he donated, which made it harder for him to dose Spencer. He stabs Spencer with M99 through his hand accidentally, and after his almost failed attempt to dose him, he managed to somehow reach his neck. When Spencer wakes up, Dexter confronts him about Jimmy Powell and Nikki. Spencer tells him that Nikki would die of starvation if he offs him, and that he would only tell Dexter where he is if he lets him go. At this point, Spencer is still trying to convince Dexter that he has the wrong guy, and it's just straight up funny. There is a moment when Spencer tells Dexter that he's doing all of this to get back to his wife. Because of that, Dexter realized how one single incident can turn a good person into a monster, and that made everything even darker for him. Then Dexter has his rage moment and he brutally cuts off Spencer's finger without any hesitation. Dexter also made a high IQ move there. He loosens Spencer's bindings to trick him, hoping Spencer will take the bait and lead him to Nikki. After Dexter left the arcade, this is exactly what happened. He didn't exactly lead Dexter to Nikki in this episode, but I have a good feeling this will be the case in the next one. For our final moment, just like at the start of the episode, we get to see Brian. This time he kidnapped Barb and tied her somewhere at the rooftop. This is a very unfortunate moment for Barb because she never wanted to split up the siblings in the first place. But because Barb separated Brian and Dexter, Brian decides to separate her in his own way using chainsaw. Yeah, that was one hell of an episode, I must say. Brian's addition to this episode was brilliant and perfectly executed. We still don't know what's the deal with Spencer. Why would he go through all of this just to get back at his wife? And I really wonder what is going to happen with this Brian and Harry situation. What do you guys think? Will Bobby survive? Will Dexter save Nikki? Will Brian be in the last episode? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you with the last episode.
Peace out.